our very first speaker, Ranko, also known as Grandpa Tiger, who is gonna tell us about some game design tricks and what questions should be asked before writing for a game. Hi, Ranko. How are you today?
Hello, feeling fantastic.
So, before we start, I have a very tricky question for you. So, how do you feel? What game influenced you the most before you have started working as the mentor and coach for game designers?
Oh, wow, that is a tricky question because my journey into gaming started on a little black machine with plastic or rather rubbery keyboards, and it was called ZX Spectrum. So, one of the most influential, I would say, developers for me was Mike Singleton, who created wonderful games such as Dark Scepter and Lords of Midnight. And basically, he taught me the most about narrative design and game design because his games were able to tell a lot of stories without any text.
That's great to know. So yeah, many games from the past have influenced all of us a lot to start working in such a magnificent industry. So don't take more of your time. We're ready to go. Good luck with your presentation. We are ready
Thank
to
you.
listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you. So, welcome, wonderful persons, to my talk, 5 questions to ask yourself before writing for a game by me. So, who am I? Well, that's not the first out of the 5 questions for today. That's just me introducing myself to you. So, my name is Ranko, as you've seen, and my nickname is Grandpa Tiger because I'm old and wise, obviously. And yeah, so I began my journey as a game journalist, and then I joined a team as a game designer. But then I learned that my superpower lies a bit elsewhere, so I moved to be a game producer. However, since I do come from a writing background, I'm a published author with several books out there and countless stories. I have always been drawn to narratives, and then I started my narrative consultant career. And I'm intentionally not saying narrative designer because nowadays, poor game writers who are really underappreciated in the game industry sort of hijack the title of narrative designer because it sounds better than a game writer. So anyway, I'm going to tell you something about writing for games and writing a games. And it comes from my vast experience as not only a consultant, but also a teacher of narrative design. So let's see. Our first question to ask yourself is, are you writing for a game or are you writing a game? What's the difference, you might ask? Well, the difference is a subtle one, but there is one, and it's going to influence the way you think about your narrative. But let's first see what games today are. Okay, so this is my own interpretation about what the games are. And I would say that vast majority of mobile games are some sort of gambling. Like you're gambling against players' patience, wanting them to pay some premium currency to, unlock further actions. Or basically there's some visualizations, like you have some AFK games, which more or less just visualize some sort of decisions that player makes in a meta game. Games today can be toys. And when I say toys, I mean games which sort of tell you the story regardless of their the quantity of their text, because the way they talk to you, the way they narrate is not in the text. These games sort of give you the experience that you feel like, oh my God, I have so much stories to tell after you play around. It can be Dwarf Fortress, it can be a RimWorld, Minecraft, but also Fortnite, also puzzle games, but also some skill-based games. If you ever played a round of Counter-Strike, you know what I'm talking about. So it's like a skill-based game, like a shooter, right? But there's some amazing interactions that can happen that you have need to tell to someone afterwards. That's what I mean by creating emergent narratives. More or less, all the other games are narrative games or games that require a narrative. But still, writing a game, when we say writing a game, we think about a game book or interactive fiction, choose your adventure, visual novel, or some title like that, because these games are not only powered by narrative, but we read them as a part of gameplay. So if you play a choose your own adventure game, you read, then you make some choices, and that's the gameplay. But writing a game means developing the story and the structure first. So the games that are powered by narrative, no matter what the genre is, the games which are narratively driven, these games you have to develop like you're developing a movie, like you're developing a book, only, of course, with interactivity and non-linearity in mind. If you're writing for a game, it means that narrative elements are treated as a game design. So if you're writing for a game, your narrative will be there, will be important, but will not be primary. So you have to see what narrative elements to use as a part of game design. For example, some games need only theme or only plot or only characters. Some games will need some episodes of some story nodes. Some games will need world building, a map that narrates, a campaign map. So the player can choose where to go, and these choices can be narrative as well. Like if you go this way, then you meet this kind of people, and if you go that way, you meet that kind of people. And writing for a game is very important because it also requires structural development, and it's similar to developing a novel, but it's not exactly like writing a game, because in writing a game, your theme, your plot, your narrative elements will be primary, but in writing for a game, you have to go back to the pillars of your game. Also, I must address here that a lot of people think that writing for a game is just fluff, you know, having lore, having some info, some dialogues, and some copy for games, blah, blah. And oopsie, I put dialogues as fluff. I know, what a blasphemy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that dialogues is part of plot and characters, because dialogues not only serve characterization of characters, but also they move the plot forward. They're super important. Dialogues, you know, like, oh my God, like if you're a game designer, I respect that you can craft a narrative, but if you're gonna write the dialogues, you really have to be, you have to know what you're doing, because dialogues can kill your game or make it better. Anyway, but I put it here because usually people treat dialogues as like just a fluff, like write some dialogues. So why this question? You know, because for game devs, the lure of the narrative is like super difficult to resist. You think that if you have a game, you have to have a narrative immediately, and sometimes maybe you need to write for your game, and sometimes you need to write a game. If you need to write a game, that's like a completely different story. Like, okay, you start with theme, you start with plot, you collect all the basic narrative elements together. But if you're writing for a game, if you have a pillar of your game, if you have some feeling that you want to implant to players through your gameplay, then don't burden your story, your game with a story. So pick narrative elements to use it as part of your game design. So the second question is naturally, do you even need a story? And I will tell you a story about a game which didn't need a story. This on screen is a early version of a really cute tactical, I would say, game called Western. So because it's like a Western and it's played in turns, but the players go simultaneously when they pick their turns. And the guys who wanted to get some narrative consultations with me, which I also invite you to do anytime during this day or in the next few days. You can just ping me, you have my contact, and we'll schedule some free consultations about your game, because everyone thinks that narrative designers and narrative consultants are some pricey luxury for your game, but no, it's not true, and they can really be helpful for your project. Like I was helpful for these guys, because I saw that they have a really cool game, but they wanted to inject a narrative in it, and they don't even need it. Injecting the narrative in this kind of game would just burden the game, break the game flow, and leave the player with two disconnected elements. Like, oh, there's some sort of story which is not fun, and there's some sort of gameplay which is okay, but it's too much interrupted with narrative. So ask yourself first, do you even need a story? What can you do to have your game design elements tell a story? I mean, it's cool to have some sort of characters, because characters are always like, attracting attention, and they're like a focus of connection, because players can connect deeply with the game if the characters are cool. But instead of going for a cool, I suggest you go for the needs of your game. So what are the pillars of your game? What do you want players to feel? What do you want players to experience? And how can your gameplay elements contribute to that? And please remember, narrative designer, a good narrative designer, is not only going to help you with your text. Good narrative designer is there to bridge the ludonarrative gap, the gap between the game and the narrative and the story. So luckily, these guys were smart, and they started improving their gameplay and game design elements, so that each little round tells a story in itself. So they don't need some external story to choke their game. So as I said, pillars of your game. For those who are not familiar with this term, the pillars of your fantasy, or pillars of a game, is answer to the question, what kind of fantasy are you providing? So what's the player gonna experience? What the player's gonna feel or think? When you design a gameplay, when you design your game, that's when you design what will player do, how will player interact with your game. But before that, you need to know what experiences you want them to have. Do you want them to feel like a big boss? Do you want to feel like a super hotshot pilot? Do you want them to feel like a lonely rock or something? And then you can only start to craft your game in a better way, because then you will know what kind of game design elements you need to address these feelings, to address these experiences, and also do you need a story, because not only game needs a story. So what game design elements support these pillars, and what game elements are there just to be cool? And the rule of the cool is really nice, but it can also destroy your game. Don't go for the cool, go for the things that reinforce your pillars. So maybe you can also explore, okay, so my game doesn't need a story, but doesn't need some narrative support. Maybe. So if you look at your game fantasy pillars, you can see, I have a narrative elements that can synergize. I can have fluff elements that complement the game, or I don't need nothing at all. So yeah, be careful to explore this kind of thing. When I'm talking about story elements, what are these story elements anyway? Story elements are theme, plot, characters, world building, or the setting, because world building is like a geography of your world, and setting is how it translates into culture, events, people, history, all these riches that make world building so exciting for everyone. Episodes, I mean episodes of a story, which can be connected in a flow or just interconnected in some special kind of structure. Speaking of structure, there are narrative structures, the narrative strategies that you can explore, like is your story linear, non-linear, how does it flow, does it cycle, does it repeat itself, is it based on a hero's journey, is it based on a semiotic square? There are a lot of structures. There's like a whole lecture just on structures. So let's start with characters, because characters are like the immediate thing. Like if you go to any indie development group on Facebook or whatever, Reddit, everyone's like, oh, here's my character. What do you think about my character? And people assume that if they draw a character, then that it's enough. You put this character in a game, and that's enough. Well, it's not enough, because characters are important. They are focus of your game, but they also need to have some anatomy, something that will make them believable, that will make them like more than just a drawing. So when I say characters, I think that a lot of game designers and game developers in general start with characters, but then you need to know what makes the anatomy of a character, the character's motivations, the character's goals, the character's ethos. And all these things can only be explained and explored through the game, through the gameplay. So characters are super fun, super important, but they are not the standalone element. They are part of your game design. That's why I say, ask yourself, do you even need story elements? Maybe your game doesn't even need characters. Maybe your game needs characters who are not humans. Maybe your characters can have, avatars. But also, don't get mistaken, avatar is not an empty vessel. Character, which belongs to the player, he's not an empty vessel. It would be like asking someone to read your story and then supplying blank pages, and they're like, okay, well, use your own imagination, fill in the blanks. So don't do that. The characters need to be defined, even if they're avatars. There was a great story about the Doom guy, Doom guy, the masked warrior from the Doom. They wanted to make him completely, like blank, so the player can feel the shoes of this Doom guy. And now we don't even know nothing about this Doom guy. He just, a Doom guy. We forgot how he looks. We can barely distinguish him from some other sci-fi warriors who appeared afterwards. So yeah, be careful to your characters. World building or setting is something that, again, I used it before the theme and plot, because for game developers, the world is like obvious thing. Like, okay, my story needs to be happening in a world. And then they build levels, then they build maps, but never forget that this is also a story element. This is also a game design element. So you need to see what kind of world fits your story, what kind of world fits your gameplay. If it's going to be, a tight chase with cars, of course, it's going to be urban setting. Also, mind you, the setting is something a bit more than world building. So world building is like layout of the level, layout of the campaign map. But setting is giving answers to all the fun questions, like who lives there, what do they eat, what do they drink, how do they have fun, what's their culture, what's their history, how they're gonna interact with different events from the world, how are they gonna interact with the player interfering in the world. As we all know from the GTA series, the big fun of the series that everyone else seems to be reacting to the player's action, people being scared, running away, calling the cops or whatever. So world building, super important story element, but also needs proper development and needs to be put in the structure, like starting again from the pillars of the game. Why do you need this level? Why do you need this culture? Why do you need this? How does it support your fantasy pillars? Or if you're writing a game, okay, world building is part of the story, and the story is explanation or proof of your theme. So how does your world building connect to a theme? Speaking of theme is something really inherent to writing a game, so a full narrative approach, because a theme is basically whatever you want to tell to players. And if you're going to tell a story, the first thing that everyone's going to ask themselves is like, why are you telling us this story? Why not telling us some other story? Why is this story so important to you? That's why it's very, very important to know, what are you going to create? What are you creating? But also theme can be a part of the game design. For example, a few days ago, a guy says, okay, I need a narrative for my game, and it's a racing game. Like, okay, what kind of narrative would you like? I don't know. I just feel I need a narrative. Okay, calm down. So what's your gameplay like? Well, it's about driving. Okay, but what kind of feeling does your player get when they're driving? Do they feel super fast? Do they feel super danger? Do they feel chill and leisure? And then it dawned on him that his game doesn't need any story, it doesn't need any narrative, but it does need a theme. So if your gameplay evokes the feelings of calm and chill, then theme of your game is like, enjoy the nature. What if you just could drive and enjoy the nature? A theme can be a question like that. Yeah, like, what if? A theme can be your opinion, like, I think that driving is bliss. And then you can make a racing game, driving game with a theme. No story, no characters, nothing. Your character is, you driving the car. But the theme can be a really powerful story element, and you can use it, to your advantage, even if you're writing for a game. Plot, obviously, is like, what's going on. How do you illustrate the point of your theme? The plot proves that, you know, whatever you want to say is going to happen. Like, I don't know, if I tell you like water is bad, then my plot would be like two guys walk next to the swimming pool, one falls down and drowns, you know, see, water is bad. So also when crafting a plot, a lot of people is like, you know, they want to go bonkers, like, oh, plot, you know, oh, events, happenings, you know, many crazy stuff. But again, starting from theme, plot is easy to craft, or starting from a pillar of fantasy. Like if you're writing for game, maybe your game needs a plot. Like, I don't know, Mafia 3, wonderful plot. Or I don't know, we have some strategy games that have some plot that, okay, this is why we do stuff we do. So plot, super fun and super important, and it can be just a narrative element. It doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to be enslaving your game. Episodes. A lot of stories can be told through little clusters of episodes. Maybe your game doesn't even need an overarching plot. Maybe it just needs episodes. You're running a live ops game, forget about plot. The plot has ending. You know, last thing you want in your live ops is to have something that's like a finishing ending. Episodes on the other side, you know, TV series, thousands of seasons, you know, thousands of episodes. So if you structure your narrative for your game, then you can use just episodes. Episodes also have their, you know, intro, their peak, their drama, their ending. So, but they can be repeated over and over again. So episodes are really cool thing to inject in your game if you don't need a fully designed narrative, but you just need something to, you know, as a story element to support your pillars. Narrative structure, narrative strategy, that can also be fun. You know, you don't have to craft the whole story, but you can like have time traveling game design or time traveling mechanic, and then you can say, okay, my story is gonna, or whatever is gonna, you know, be told backwards, and then you don't craft a plot or team or whatever, but you can use just the structure, the flow of the game, flow of the story. So basically, narrative structure can be really, really powerful story element. For example, there was an old Russian game called Silent Storm, and basically the whole game was like a bunch of levels where you go and, you know, meet your enemies, outsmart your enemies. But the story was quite linear. I mean, like there were some events that were going to happen, you know, either way. But the narrative structure, the way you connect the dots by playing out these levels, was amazing, and it was like the focus of the narrative was delivering it through structure. So again, sometimes you don't, if you're writing a game, then you need structure right after you have your team and plot in place. But if you're writing for a game, then sure, just you can pick a specific structure to be your thing in a sense of narrative. Okay, now we got to the difficult question, and that's like if my element is good fit for my game. That's like a question I get all the time asked. Yeah, like, oh, I have I don't know, a giant banana with you know, bunky tail, and is it a good fit for my game? Or I don't know, I have my character's initials are JC, and you know, he's descending into hell. Is it like okay for my game? I even once gave a lecture on like how to craft your characters, and in the end, the guy said, "Okay, I understand everything, but my character is an airplane. How does it fit? You know, how does it fit my game?" So yeah, quite difficult thing how to recognize if any element, game design or narrative element, fit your game. And that's why the guy on the screen is holding a compass, because as you maybe recall from the movie, the compass is going to tell you where something you desire the most lies. So the $10 million question is, what do you want to create? Because only then we can tell you if an element is a good fit for your game, and then only you can learn how to recognize if the element is a good fit for your game. Only if you know what do you want to create. And I understand game design and game development is a process where you're creating a system which is smarter than you, a system which is sometimes not easy to visualize, you know, to have a clear vision on, but you can iterate this, I don't care, but you have to know in each iteration what is it that you want to create, because only then you can reach meaningful conclusion to this question. So remember the math: 1 dot, blah, 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 infinite lines, 2 dots, 1 line. Yeah. Or infinite number of lines, they're just not being visible, whatever. But I suggest you pick 2 elements out of the story elements and out of your game design elements. 2. And use them as iron sights. Use them as a way to pinpoint where's the north for you. So if you, for example, are like one of my students and clients, he's making noir, cyberpunk sort of adventure game. And he said, okay, no puzzles whatsoever, no inventory. I don't want players to be clogged and bogged down and, losing their time over what goes where. So I want a smooth running point and click like experience. That's one element. And he said, I want cyberpunk noir. And that's the other element. And of course, we developed the narratives and narrative structures. We developed the gameplay and what are players going to do, how they're going to interact with the game. But it was always thanks to these 2 elements that we were able to find our true north. So like, I want to have, I don't know, gangsters. Do they fit the cyberpunk noir? Yes, they do. I want to have evil corporation. Do they fit cyberpunk noir? Yes, they do. I want to have a complex interacting puzzle with many elements. No, it doesn't interact. It doesn't fit your game because you said you don't want this as your game element. So pick 2 elements, stick to them, and use them to aim. Also, always go back to pillars. Always go back to what is it that you want to create. If you don't know what you want to create, I pity the fool who has this problem, because I know it's not easy, but no one's going to help you, and no one's going to be able to help you if you don't know what you want to do. So you can pick 1 gameplay element, like game design element, or a feel of a game, and 1 narrative element. Why I say 1 and 1? Because if you're going to have 2 gameplay elements picked, then you probably don't need any narrative. Or if you pick 2 narrative elements, you have to think about what's your game design going to be. What is it that the players are going to do? How they're going to interact with your game? A lot of people are better off just writing a novel or writing a movie. Interactivity and player agency is not the easiest thing to implement. But of course, I'm telling this to newbies, to all you guys who are already in game development. This is like 1 and 1, 1 and 1 is 2. So 1 game design element and 1 narrative element, and you're good to go. So when you consider new element, like is this element fit, you put it between the 2. You put it between this iron sight and ask yourself like, okay, is this a 3rd dot in a line, or is this like way off? And then you can say, okay, this new element doesn't fit, or it needs adjusting to fit. It needs to be put in the correct place. So the 5th question is, who you gonna call? And it's not Ghostbusters, okay, obviously. Why I'm asking you this, like who you gonna call? Because writing a game and writing for a game sounds like an easy task. Like, okay, I speak, therefore I can write. I have imagination, to invent the whole game, so I'm imaginative enough to create a story. That's true. I think that everyone, yes, even you can write a story. But writing a story or being creative in any effort is like having tunnel vision. Like you stop seeing obstacles. You stop seeing until it's too late. You stop seeing problems. You're just focused on getting what you want, getting there, creating, and often you get your abilities, so to say, diminished. So we are creatures of stories. Everyone lives a life where you are in main role and you know how to handle narration. It comes naturally to us. But when making a game, when you're making a story, when you're crafting things like that, your vision blurs, and you have to think who you're going to call, who's going to help you when you start losing the clarity of vision. Yep, you can call yourself, you can do it yourself, but then you have to prepare quite a lot. You have to know in advance what your narrative structure is going to be, what your game pillar is going to be. You have to do a whole lot of preparing, whole lot of structuring, so that you can check your structure, then dive in, create, resurface, check the structure again. But you can have some sanity checks while you're doing this, because this is not really, this dipping in and out is not easy. But you can whatever you write for a game, or whenever you write a game, read it aloud. It helps really. Like it sounded so great idea when it was on a paper, but then if you don't read it aloud, you're not really gonna have this sense of connection to it. Especially the dialogues. The dialogues are tough. They're not easy. You write the dialogue and they're stylish, they're cool, but if you don't read them aloud or with someone, you cannot be sure if it's going to work. Also, who said that is a great check. If you have a character and then you want them to speak in some way, write a few lines for your characters and give it to your teammates. I don't care. Give it to someone to just read and to try to recognize who said it, who of your cast of characters said it. And if you cannot recognize who said what, oh boy, you did something wrong with your characters, or you did something wrong with your characterization. So ask for help. Role play it, and I don't mean just dialogues. Many games that offer choices, like survival games, they put players in an impossible situation where I have option to do this or to do that, and I don't want to do either. So role play it several times. Go through the moral options, the moral choices with someone else, because in your mind it may sound fine, but when you present these choices to someone else, it can be completely different story. Stay on target. Be mission oriented, check the compass, how it aligns, how the story aligns with your targets, your narrative target and your gameplay target. And yeah, enjoy the hyper thing era, reduce, add as few elements as you can. Fewer elements, fewer moving parts, more safe environment for you to create. And please call your narrative designer before shit happens. It doesn't have to be me. This is not an advertisement, but people are gonna make game, people are gonna make story, and then they're gonna realize that pipe is burst, shit is flowing everywhere, and they're gonna invite someone who knows what they're doing, but often it's gonna be too late. So don't hesitate to call your narrative designer as an architect, as a part of the architecture, to lay down the pipes so they don't burst. Okay, cool. So here's my contacts. Here's my code for the my web design, or if you want to schedule a clarity call, you have these free consultations. And in the meantime, yeah, feel free to ask your questions. And I thank Igor for inviting me here to speak with you now.
Thank you very much, Ranko. This was such a great talk. Thank you for highlighting the important things about narrative design, what questions should be asked. We have like the Blueprint audience here in the chat. Everyone's like discussing so many great things. So guys, if you do have any questions for Ranko, which we can discuss right now, please feel free to post them in the coming minutes right now while we are doing this small Q&A session. So before we go for the questions which we're going to have from the audience, Ranko, how do you think, what should a person do to obtain narrative designer skills? Are there any specific books to be read, or any games to be played, or maybe some video materials should be watched? What are your personal recommendations about that?
My personal recommendation is to read a book called Finite and Infinite Games by Mr. Parsons, I think. And also to try your hand at game design, try your hand at writing, try your hand at writing a game. Like in my narrative design course, I teach people how to write interactive fiction, because it's like narrative plus game design. Also, learn to code. And don't learn to code to be a programmer. Don't learn to code to make your own game, but learn to code to be able to build a prototype. Programmers are really precious, and they really appreciate you more and listen to your ideas and contribute to ideas, because programmers are quite clever guys. They can see right through the problems. They can recognize where the problem is going to arise if you're trying to make a game. So if you're going to be a good narrative designer, a really valued asset to your team, do write a lot, make a lot of games, write a lot of games, and learn some coding. Save your programmers some time, and present them with a prototype as fast as possible.
Thank you very much, Franco. That's great notice. And people are asking here on the chat, how did you start as narrative designer? Do you have to be a professional writer to get this role for somebody else? So it's very curious to know.
Becoming a narrative designer nowadays is quite difficult, because when I was starting, I was reading up on people who are narrative designers, and it turns out it's people who know people. Like, every narrative designer out there was like, I don't know, I was just invited because I'm famous already, or I don't know, I already have some connections in the gaming industry. So the initially narrative designers were some elite, so to speak, guys, and that's why poor game writers adopted it now, because like, screw this, no one appreciates a game writer. You're just some guy who's just writing for some fluff stuff. So when I wanted to become a narrative designer, I made sure that I have the skills, and that I have especially skills in structural analysis. That's something from a world of literature. So it's not enough to be a good writer. You have to see the structures of the narrative. You have to see clearly what are the narrative elements, but also you have to have experience as a game designer, so you know what kind of game design elements are there. A lot of books on game design will not teach you how to be a game designer, because that's like something quite intangible, but they will give you a list of gameplay elements, game design elements, and how to sort of use it. For narrative designers, there isn't such a book yet, but there are some skills, some hard skills that you can learn, but they mostly revolve around structures and being able to see through the structures of narrative. Today, if I want to recommend someone to become a narrative designer, I would tell them, like, write a lot. Write for games. Don't write. Write a game to teach yourself game design, but write for games. Write fluff for games. Be a game writer first. Learn how to collaborate with your future colleagues, because narrative design does require a certain both this narrative part and the game design part. I haven't met a game designer who, like, okay, I'm a game designer, I have this experience, but I'll just switch to narrative design, because they need to understand story better. But also, I personally, I think that some game writers ruined the industry, and if you just invite novelists to write your game, you're gonna get fucked. Sorry, pardon my English. But so yeah, narrative designer is this like a rare bird. So you have to become someone who has both the narrative and the game design worlds inside of you.
Thank you very much, Franco. Just to let you know, this question was asked by Kyra Abad. Thank you. And we do have more questions. We actually have a lot, which is great. Thank you very much, guys, from the audience, from the chat. So I will try to follow as many as we could. So the next one is from Santiago, and he asks, how do you find inspiration and how do you test your writing skills?
I don't work with inspiration. I don't believe in inspiration. Inspiration is something that's gonna get you high, inspired to see things, and then when you crash, you're gonna have a writer's block. I work with themes, I work with plots, I work with elements, I work with structures. If you're gonna be a professional writer, never, ever, ever, ever rely on inspiration. Inspiration is gonna destroy you, because writing a game or writing for a game, you need to produce. You need to, iterate. You need to write a lot. You need to combine your writing with someone else's ideas. So inspiration is forbidden. Don't do inspiration, please. Next question.
Thank you very much. So you're saying writing for a game is more a craft than an art, right?
Writing for a game is more craft. No, it requires more craft than art, but it is an art. You in the end you have to write something. So yeah, what I wanted to say is that it's a bit more difficult, more challenging, because it's not only about your writing; it's about how it connects to actual gameplay. Sadly, today in game studios, writers are separated from game designers at best, or like a game designer will be a writer at worst, and then there's all kind of troubles. So yeah, it does require more craft and more skill, but in the end, it's also writing, it's also art. Yeah.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Hamid, and it's a very good one, I think. So, what's the fastest and most reliable way to validate the quality of the story? For example, Hamid has a few storytellers who are helping him with his game. So every time he shares the story with anyone else, new aspects and improvements points show up all the time. So is he on the right track to listen to all these improvements, or is there a point where you should just stop?
I don't believe in crowd-funded or crowd-sourced creativity. I believe in expert. Call me a Sith Lord, but I believe in like one master, one student. So, but the focus of his validation should be what he wants to create. What is your theme? What is your plot? What is your character? What is your world? Do they align together? Do they fit together? There is a great story by Chris Crawford, who was conducting playtesting for his game. And one of his playtesters complained. He said, "You're asking me all these questions, but you don't want to take my suggestions." And he said, because I know exactly what I want to create. I just want to see how well I crafted it so far. So basically, if you're not sure what to do with your story, how to improve it, or does the element fit or not, then you're in trouble. Then something is lost on you in sense that you're not sure where you want to end up, where you want to travel towards. So I would suggest to like take a step back, make sure that you know where do you want to go with your story, what do you want your players to feel, to experience, to just go through, and then pick two elements of this, like a plot and the characters, or characters and the world, or whatever two elements, and then stick to them, stick to trying to align them, because many writers will give you many suggestions, and they're going to be great suggestions, and some of them are just, even they're great suggestions, they're not good fit for your story. So you have to start listening to your own compass, your own internal compass, and it's what do you want to make, and then you can see, okay, I have a vision. The feedback I give shows me that I'm a bit off maybe, but never use anyone's feedback as your creative, direct creative input. It can be dangerous, especially if you use several of the writers. Be super careful who's gonna give you advice about this. That's why the whole fifth question is who you're gonna call. It has to be someone you trust. It has to be someone who understands the needs of your game first. A lot of writers understand the needs of story, but they don't understand the needs of games. So be careful.
Thank you very much. And the next question is from Valeria Naumova. Hi, Valeria, by the way. Hope you're doing great. So, Ranka, what's the difference between a game writer and a narrative designer, if there is any?
Yes. A game writer is someone who is an expert writer, and they can write for a game in sense of fluff. They can write text for a game. They can create elements for a game. But narrative designer is there to craft the structures, to craft these elements so that they combine well with game design. So basically, I wouldn't let a game writer suggest how to connect the gameplay and story, but I would rely on a game writer. In fact, I do, to write the dialogues, to write the copy, for game, everything that's involving text. I will trust the game writer to write the fluff, some lore, whatever. So game writer is someone who's really writing. He's like a master crafter of words. That's why copywriters are often very good for game writers, better than novelists, because a game writer needs to deliver succulent, enticing, really, really brief and powerful words. But narrative design will tell you what was the content, where to place it, how to pace it, and whatever it takes to combine the game design elements with the narrative.
Thank you very much, Franca. So, aren't you tired yet? We do have a few more questions.
Yeah, please bring them on.
So the question is from Nishida. They ask, they is an artist and game designer, like writing stories very, very much. So they generally use Twine to write stories, but end up going on and on while writing the dialogues. So they just can't stop. How to keep on track where to end your story and finish the dialogue?
Well, how to finish your story? Well, you need to know what do you want to say again, and this what do you want to say. It has the finite state. It has something like, okay, I've told this story, and this story ends here. If you cannot end the story, that means that you're meandering. You're probably, your story is ongoing, and it probably needs to be, somehow delineated. It doesn't mean you have to stop it, but it's better to have like a volume 2, volume 3, season 2, season 3 than just continuously write, because there is a big secret about writing. You're basically coding a perception of your readers, and in game, this coding has to include also the game design elements. And in interactive fiction, or when using Twine, the choices are going to be your game design. So you cannot just write endless dialogue. It's going to destroy the perception of your audience. Dialogue is there too. Move the plot forward, provide the information, provide the characterization. That's why I suggest that whenever you're crafting an episode, which includes dialogue, to write first what's the goal of this episode. Like, this is the episode where player meets parents. This is the episode where father throws the guy out of the house. This is the episode where girl meets the boy. Whatever. So do know what's your goal for each episode, and then you will know where to end. If you don't have that, the story will wiggle out of your control. And people believe that stories are harmless. No, stories can hurt you. The stories can, wiggle out of your hands. The stories can seriously hurt you. Like, you write these nice dialogues, you give all your heart and soul, and it's not good. Oh my God, I'm hurt. Happens a lot. So, treat your story right. Don't let her wiggle out of your hands. Feed her proper food, like what she needs. And she will tell you what she needs, because she has, if you have goals and aims and a clear theme, then you will have clear plot, and then you will have clear endings.
Thank you very much, Franca. So the next question is from Guillermo, and they ask us, so do you think it is even possible to innovate in the narrative of video games? Because practically all the plots and stories are about the journey of the hero, which I personally disagree, but what do you think?
I disagree as well. First of all, hero's journey is more useful as a way to explain change in a character than it's useful as a plot. Personally, I think that semiotic square is much more useful for games. For semiotic square, for those who don't know, it's like a Cinderella storyline. She first isn't a princess and doesn't look like princess, and then she looks like a princess, but she isn't a princess, and then she goes back to not looking like a princess, but she could be a princess, and in the end, she is a princess and she looks like one. So this kind of simple plot is quite cool for games, and I don't see it often, but it's very powerful because it allows your game to be breathing, with both lungs without being pressured by the story. Let me tell you this: writing can destroy your art. I mean, ask theater. The theater suffers under the pen of writers for thousands of years, and it almost destroyed theater as a medium. So I think games are a bit more resilient. Games already shook off writing as being someone commanding. But I agree with the question in the sense that There are so many more structures which are possible to us nowadays, that we have interactivity and non-linearity that can not only be crafted by us, but also crafted from contexts. Like one action can have different meaning or different branching in related to context. So there's going to be a lot more innovation, especially because currently we are using a new medium to tell old stories and to tell in an old-fashioned way. And that's where the game writers suffer, because if you're a writer, if you're a journalist, if you're a novelist, it's really difficult to wrap your mind around how this whole thing works, how this whole thing can work, because the game design elements and gameplay elements really can tell a story, better than maybe even just the moving pictures. And when I say moving pictures, I mean games still borrow from old media, from old arts, movie, comics, books. But one day games are going to find their own language, their own authentic language, and writing and narrative design is going to be there to help. So yeah, we're far from being over with the whole narrative design thing.
Thank you very much, Ranka. I think this question was a great one to finish the Q&A session. Guys in the chat, the audience, thank you so much for the great questions. We really love to answer them. So I know there are a few more, but they are more related to the tools which should be used for narrative design. So Ranka, if you do have a few minutes, please go to the lectures chat to chat with the guys a little bit.
Sure, of course.
If you, dear viewers, have any questions, please feel free to address them to Ranka on his email, on social media. I believe he'd be happy to help you, right?
Yes, of course.
Ranka, thank you very much for this very educational talk.
Thank you.
I like how people are calling this for the first time in a while, I would say, not a lecture, but a lesson. And I love how this sounds.
Thank you, guys. You're great.
Thank you for the inspiration. Goodbye and take care.
Take care, guys.